Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about this video that I found to be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video by that of the IBFP. I was originally going to review that of, I believe it was Fight Hub TV or Boxing Scene. I can't really remember. But they had an interview recently with David Benavidez' manager, I believe, where they were talking about Canelo Alvarez and then the potential negotiations. And overall, do you believe that Canelo Alvarez is pricing himself out? And according to David Benavidez' own manager, he said, no, I think that Canelo Alvarez deserves every penny of the $150 million. That's what he stated. And, once again, in my most recent video about Canelo Alvarez, I stated overall that I thought that maybe 150 million to 200 million. I think that some could say that that's a bit high, but I could understand anywhere from 100 to 150 million. I really could, and I don't blame Canelo Alvarez for asking that amount, especially against an opponent that is highly dangerous and someone that is going to be probably about potentially 20 pounds bigger than him. Because David Benavidez, once again, he's not a natural super middleweight. And Canelo's not a natural super middleweight either. Canelo's really more of a middleweight fighter because he's around 5'7" once again with a 71-inch arm reach. David Benavidez is a good 6'2", probably with about, a little bit of a longer arm reach, probably with about a 73-inch arm reach, somewhere around there. And on top of that, he goes in there pretty much overall when he rehydrates like a damn light heavyweight to a cruiserweight. So it is what it is. So I don't mind Canelo Alvarez asking for that amount of money. I don't think that the fight is going to happen this year. I think that Canelo Alvarez, that he's going to fight Jaime Munguia, and that he's probably going to try to fight Jamal Charlo next. Apparently, from what I'm hearing, there's a rumor of a potential Caleb Plant versus Jamal Charlo fight. I don't think that fight's going to happen personally because that is a very dangerous fight for Jamal Charlo to take, and is very much a fight overall that he may potentially not win. And if Jamal Charlo is going to be in a part of the deal to make Canelo Alvarez stay there, then he's he's going to have to make Jamal Charlo look good in his next fight. And Caleb Plant, of course, is a common opponent of both David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. So on the surface, it looks good. So unless Caleb Plant takes a dive in that fight, which you never know, it's boxing. But when it comes down to it, unless that happens, I'm not quite sure if I see Jamal Charlo beating Caleb Plant. So we'll see overall what ends up happening to that. But I could be wrong about that. We'll see. But anyways, the IBFP here, he's going to be talking recently about the Canelo Alvarez negotiations. And this is a part of the reason, once again, why, whenever it comes to allegations of a fighter ducking, unless it's very apparent to me or very clear, I don't really like to, put on those allegations because, once again, I don't mind Canelo Alvarez asking for more money than apparently the $55 million that he was offered. Because Canelo Alvarez, and he stated in the most recent interview that, David Benavidez doesn't bring anything to the table for me. Well, Canelo knows that's bullshit because if David Benavidez didn't bring anything to the table for you, why would you be asking for 150 to $200 million? Unless either A, you believe that he's a mega threat, or that B, he somewhat does bring something to the table for you. Probably a little bit of both. Don't get it wrong. I do think that Canelo Alvarez, that he realizes that David Benavidez is a big threat, but he's not going to be fighting him for $55 million. Canelo Alvarez made that money damn near with Caleb Plant, about $10 million less. He's not going to be fighting David Benavidez, who potentially is the biggest threat to possibly end his career at the moment, at least when you talk about from 168, and under. He's not going to take that fight for just $55 million. That's not going to happen. And I don't blame Canelo Alvarez. Canelo right now is the face of boxing. Some would even still debate him as the number one pound-for-pound fighter. Right now, for me, it'd be Terrence Crawford. And I'd probably have Canelo somewhere around, 3 or 4, somewhere around there. But if you were to still debate him as the number one pound-for-pound fighter, I would get it. But once again, it's just very interesting because there was also certain things within negotiations. And this is why, even though I think that, Canelo Alvarez, that you can tell that he realizes that David Benavidez is a threat, I'm not really just going to go all in on Canelo Alvarez as of yet in terms of avoiding David Benavidez or ducking him because I think Canelo Alvarez realizes that he, his worth, that he could definitely get 100 million to 150 million overall for the possible David Benavidez fight, or at least somewhere close around 100 million, maybe a little bit over that. So once again, I don't blame Canelo Alvarez for doing that because he is the quote unquote face of boxing. Canelo Alvarez isn't just another one of these guys, or someone overall that needs to prove himself when it comes down to it in terms of, finally taking on a big fight because he's never been in a big fight before. Now, once again, does that mean that he should not fight his mandatories. Absolutely not. You should always, do that, to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, once again, Canelo realizes the magnitude behind this fight. So it is what it is. And, once again, Canelo, he states that Benavidez doesn't really bring much for him. He knows that that's not true once again. Otherwise, he wouldn't be asking for that amount of money. But Canelo realizes the super fight that this could potentially be. And once again, I wouldn't be surprised if behind the scenes that there was conversations from both of them when it came down to it overall to once again kind of, let the fight marinate a little bit. And I believe that even the promoter said something about that as well. Now, I think that he was talking about more promoting it in, 6 or 8 different cities, but we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, the IBFP overall, he's going to talk about it. I'm going to tune in. Let's get straight into it.
Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing News.
Team David Benavidez says Canelo deserves the $150 million. Look, let's break it down honestly and objectively as possible. And Team David Benavidez has come out and responded to Canelo Alvarez's request for $150 to $200 million to make a fight with David Benavidez. Now, this is very, very interesting. Samson, David Benavidez's own promoter, has come out and stated, and I quote, Canelo Alvarez is a very good businessman, and he deserves the $150 million that he's asking for. They believe he deserves all of the money and then some. This is what Team Benavidez believes. They also stated we need to marinate the fight to get the highest purse. So when you marinate a fight, the fight doesn't happen right away. There's a delay. It's pushed back. You don't have immediate satisfaction. So all of you David Benavidez fanboys say, we need to fight today. We need it right now. Sit your dumb ass down, because Team David Benavidez is talking about marinating the fight. Not only...
I tell you what, this guy, the IBFP, I certainly give him a great amount of credit overall for the energy that he brings to the table. I'm a person that, I can be a little bit energetic, but I don't, I have it in a little bit more of a calm way. But the IBFP, that's certainly a part of his niche. But anyways, when it comes down to it, I agree that this fight is going to have to marinate a little bit. The interesting thing is that if this fight was allegedly supposed to happen in September, the promoter basically stated that, well, Canelo wouldn't be able to get $150 million by September. He'd be able to get $60 million by September, but he wouldn't be able to get $150 million. We would have to do that in November, which is a little bit interesting. I mean, I guess that gives the fight a little bit more of a month and a half or 2 months to marinate. But, I mean, are you really going to conjure up, what, $100 more million overall within that amount of months? I mean, I don't know. That sounds a little bit odd, but maybe he could be right, just overall by promoting in certain cities. But once again, it is a little bit odd to me that David Benavidez, that apparently he didn't stay at 168 pounds, which from what I hear would have let him get his mandatory status a little bit more, and that he's going up to the light heavyweight division. But, to be honest with you, the mandatory thing is, even still a little bit cloudy to me, because that's always a very confusing thing, because sometimes the mandatory status, sometimes they reinstate it and you're forced to fight somebody, and then sometimes they, with certain fighters, they kind of let it go. So I guess it kind of just depends on the situation. But, that's why they call boxing the Wild West. But when it comes down to it, once again, the fact that David Benavidez said he was going to go up to light heavyweight, I can kind of understand that move, especially if you're going into the eliminator for the Better Beef versus Bivol fight. I could completely understand that. But then when he stated overall something about potentially moving up to cruiserweight right afterwards, I mean, why really would you make that move? To me, that just doesn't really make any sense. Because moving up to cruiserweight, I mean, first of all, you're not fighting the winner of the Bivol versus Better Beef fight, but Benavidez isn't really going to get any major criticism from that at the LDBC or in the media until they realize that Canelo Alvarez is completely knocked off. Right now, Canelo Alvarez, he's like JFK overall to that of the LDBC and the media. They need to assassinate him. They need to get him out of the picture. All right, so it is what it is. So we'll see overall once again where that goes. But I find it a little bit odd overall, once again, that you would plan to go up to cruiserweight. First of all, that tells me overall that you really don't have a great interest, at least at the moment, in facing the winner of Bivol versus Better Beef. And secondly, when it comes down to it, I mean, that's just a little bit of an odd move. I mean, why would you want to move up even another weight class, and then fight Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez instead of overall possibly going back down to 168 or staying there? I mean, once again, it could just be to stay busy, but it's a little bit of an odd move because if you move back down the weight classes, I mean, couldn't that make you potentially weaker? So I don't know. It's just a little bit odd. But maybe Benavidez, maybe he knows what he's doing. I don't know.
They're talking about marinating the fight. They're saying that Canelo's very good businessman. He knows what he's talking about, and he deserves the full 150 million so the fight can happen. This is Team David Benavidez. This is not my thoughts. These are not my feelings. This is not my opinion. This is literally Team David Benavidez. So I remember when Canelo Alvarez came out and asked for this money. I made a video and I stated how Canelo Alvarez, being the face of boxing, put in so much work. He deserves the money that he's asking for. He deserves 150.
And this is a very interesting situation because, once again, the reason why, especially with certain negotiations, unless it's very apparent to me of what one side did, like when Vasily Lomachenko gave up his WBC title not to fight Devin Haney, that's something that I can kind of understand. Canelo in the past vacating his titles, that's something that I can kind of understand. Certain other guys vacating their titles, are not fighting certain guys. Like when Gervonta Tank Davis, every time Lomachenko was brought up and he damn near shit himself, that's something I can understand. Or Mikey Garcia, even though it never gets mentioned with the LDBC or new media. I always tell people this. They always love to get on the ass of Canelo Alvarez and some of these other guys for allegedly ducking and not being that great of fighters. You know why that is? Because guys like Canelo and Lomachenko and Usyk and Fury, they were looked at as the clear best of a multitude of weight classes. And when you're looked at as the best of a multitude of weight classes, then you're debatably the number one pound for pound fighter. See, the reason why they never got after Mikey Garcia is because even though he was looked at as debatably the best within a multitude of weight classes at some point in time, he never fought anybody. Like, he never fought Vasily Lomachenko. And they realized that they needed to tear down Vasily Lomachenko more than what they needed to do Mikey Garcia. So they love to criticize Lomachenko for giving up the WBC belt and Canelo giving it up. And don't get it wrong. I think that, that's somewhat, reason for criticism. We have to keep the same standards. But, at the end of the day, once again, they never mention it with Mikey Garcia. Like, what these guys will tell you overall is that, Mikey Garcia was avoided by Lomachenko. Oh, that is bullshit. Vasily Lomachenko was avoided like the plague against Mikey Garcia. What happened with that situation, once again, is that Vasily Lomachenko said that he had to turn down the fight one time because he was coming off of a fight against Roy Linares where he had a torn shoulder. All right? And then Mikey Garcia said, okay, well, I'm going to move up and take this opportunity against Spence, which really was just a way to run away against Vasily Lomachenko. And have it well warranted because, dumbass boxing fans or dumbass people in general, they can say, well, how can you say that Mikey Garcia is avoiding Vasily Lomachenko when he's moving up 2 weight classes? If you're moving up 1 weight class, that's a different situation because, you could possibly have something to lose in that fight. When you're, going up 2 weight classes in a weight class that clearly is not your weight class or weight division, and you're facing one of the best fighters in the world, like when Kell Brook did that against Golovkin, and Mikey Garcia did that overall against that of Errol Spence Jr. All that is them basically stating that there's a person in my weight class that I don't want to get my ass whooped by. That's all that is usually overall. Whenever that happens, all right, it is what it is. That's all that is. Because then they can have the excuse of saying that, I lost that fight because I was, taking risks and I was, daring to be great. You weren't daring to be great. You were just afraid to get your ass whooped overall once again against the guy within your own weight class that you knew was a major threat. Mikey Garcia did that throughout his whole entire career, by the way. He didn't face Yuriorkis Gamboa when he was a threat. He didn't face Roy Linares. He didn't face Vasily Lomachenko. He didn't fight any of those guys. Once again, that's why when you take a look at Mikey Garcia, the LDBC and the media never mention him. They always mention him in a positive light because he was never a threat for being the potential number 1 pound for pound fighter. It is what it is.
$50 million payday. And I had my comment section littered with fanboys.
And that's why, when people try to relate the same thing to Canelo, like Dante's, dumbass nation, and Boxing Ego, all these pro-black cult members, when it comes down to it, they were trying to say, Canelo's fighting Dimitri Bivol because overall, he is doing the same thing overall that Kell Brook was doing. No, he's not, because Kell Brook was never a 154-pound champion. Canelo Alvarez was the unified 168-pound champion. He was just moving up 1 weight class in a fight that a lot of people thought that he was going to win. So it wasn't the same because Canelo actually had something to lose in that fight. Even though overall, once again, Canelo, in my view, is really about 2 weight classes naturally smaller than Dimitri Bivol, but that's the difference between the Kell Brook and Gennady Golovkin situation and the Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. situation. That's the difference. The reason why they took those fights is because, once again, it was a ploy. It was a ploy, once again, overall, for people to say, oh, they're daring to be great, and that was to get attention off the real threats that they were concerned about, which was Errol Spence Jr. for Kell Brook and Vasily Lomachenko for Mikey Garcia. That's the reason why those things happen.
Haters and trolls all coming on there to rodeo ride David Benavidez and say Canelo don't need 150 million. He's pricing himself out of the fight. He's ducking the fight. He don't want the fight. Now all of you dumbasses are exposed because.
Well, I'll say this: 150 to 200 million. I did think overall was a little bit too pricey, but 150 million, I could also see that overall, being for Canelo, especially if they're willing to market this fight. So once again, we'll see where this goes. Now taking a look at it, I don't think that the fight is going to happen this year. I think that Canelo, he's definitely fighting Jaime Munguia in May, and then he's probably going to get Jamal Charlo, or want to get Jamal Charlo. But that's going to be very interesting because Al Heyman is going to have to find an opponent for Jamal Charlo to not fuck that fight up. Because Canelo Alvarez, he's he really wants that Jamal Charlo fight. But if Jamal Charlo right now, especially the way that he is, if he gets in a fight against a real contender like Caleb Plant, that fight would do great in my view, especially because of the bad blood that they have between each other. But if he beats Jamal Charlo, what other opponent is there going to be for Canelo Alvarez? So we'll see overall what ends up happening. And Canelo might want to fight in September this year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Literally, Team David Benavidez agrees and says that he deserves $150 million. They're saying it. They're saying it. So anybody stupid enough to say Canelo's pricing himself out of the fight has been exposed. Anybody saying that Canelo don't deserve 150, anybody saying that he shouldn't get 150 have all been exposed because Team David Benavidez believes that this man deserves that money for the fight. That's what it is. It ain't no duck. It ain't no price out. Canelo Alvarez is the face of boxing, and he deserves every penny. And that's according to Team David Benavidez. I mean, we got to keep it 100. And not only that, you've even seen David Benavidez recently come out on a social media post saying that, hey, don't be surprised when this fight happens in September. We know Canelo Alvarez. Look at his history. He ducks no smoke. This man is always willing to fight everybody. This man is always willing.
Well, what I'll state is this, because Canelo Alvarez, there are maybe certain fighters that you can say that he didn't fight, like Andrade and some of the other places. And of course, the LDBC and the media, they'll spread you this bullshit about how Canelo avoided Jamal Charlo. Jamal Charlo turned out a contract a very long time ago from Golden Boy, and he admitted it. Go ahead, look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up overall for yourself when it comes down to it, all right? He turned that contract down, all right, a multitude of times. And then Canelo was supposed to fight Jamal Charlo in the last fight. He turned it down, and his smaller brother had to jump in the fight. So it is what it is. Of course, he was off for 2.5 years, so I kind of understand it. But, that's what happened. All right? So it's whatever. But at the end of the day, once again, when it comes down to it, Canelo Alvarez, he's been willing to fight the majority of great fighters throughout his career. That's why, once again, you can criticize Canelo Alvarez for certain things if you want to. I'm not, once again, this channel for me is not to go on this super emotional fanboy bullshit. I don't do any of that. I'm a person overall that gives criticism when I think that it's fair, but I'm not a person overall that just loves to jump on a bandwagon. And a lot of these people, of course, love to jump on the, Canelo, he's, ducking this guy, ducking that guy bandwagon because they listen to a lot of these idiot-ass LDBC and new media guys who don't like Canelo because of their racial issue. It is what it is. All right? Once again, they've been trying to tear down Canelo for years. Now, don't get it wrong. Canelo Alvarez, in my view, he very clearly is a little bit worried about David Benavidez. So to say overall that Canelo is just, completely free to fight David Benavidez by any terms, no, that would be something that's false. But once again, there's a difference between illogical criticism and logical criticism. If you're criticizing Canelo, overall, say if he, offers David Benavidez the fight in September, but he, if he asks for 150 million then, and then he says, oh, well, I offered the fight, then I can kind of understand the criticism because, that might be a little bit of a ploy from Canelo. I would kind of understand because maybe then they wouldn't have enough time by that time. If he asks for 150 million by next year or May or something like that, and then something ends up falling through, then, it is what it is. You may have to blame a little bit more Team David Benavidez. But like I said, I get some of these guys in my comment section that state this stuff about, oh, Canelo, he's never fought any prime names. He's just a duck. He's never fought all these guys. Well, there's certain things, once again, that you can criticize Canelo about, certain moves, for sure. But once again, to state that Canelo Alvarez has just never fought any prime names or never any great opponents, like, that's just nonsense. Once again, he's just fought way too many great names in his career when they were champions, by the way, or at the peak of their powers, overall, to ever, be called someone that doesn't have a great resume. To me, that just doesn't make any sense.
To risk it. You got to understand, Canelo Alvarez is always letting his nuts hang. So the fact that Team David Benavidez has come out and acknowledged and admitted that Canelo Alvarez deserves every penny that he's asking for, all of you haters have run out of excuses.
Guys, $12.95.
But anyways, that's pretty much about it for this video. I just thought that was very particularly interesting. But we'll see how this goes, because this negotiation is turning out to be a little bit interesting here. But we'll see where this goes. We'll see where this goes. But I'm going to be very interested. But I do agree that Canelo is very worthy, at least of $100 to $150 million if they can gather up that money. $200 million, as the guy said in his video, I believe that that might be a bit much. But we'll see overall what ends up happening there. But it appears overall that now they know the price. And once again, we'll see what happens. And I don't mind Canelo asking for that money. He's earned it over his career. And like I said, when you talk about these fighters, that's why I also don't mind the Terence Crawford and Jaron Butzenis thing. Because Terence is looking at Jaron Butzenis right now, and he's saying not only is he a major threat, but am I really going to get a major payday? He's not an established fighter. He's never really beat anyone that's super well known. He's a lot younger than me. He's a big threat. He's extremely talented. And on top of that, I could do work within other weight classes. Like 154, potentially, maybe get a super fight with Canelo Alvarez. So I don't mind Crawford doing that. But once again, it's very interesting that they criticize Canelo, against David Benavidez for doing this and all that stuff. But, they don't criticize Terence Bud Crawford. But of course, to be fair, also, I kind of understand the point, because Jaron Butzenis, Errol Spence was a proven pound-for-pound fighter, and Benavidez, he was looked at as probably the biggest threat for Canelo Alvarez there for a while, even though he didn't have the belt when Canelo was there. But, I kind of understand. But it is what it is. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see where this goes.